If you're like most of us, you have probably spent a lot of time on Zoom in the past year and a half, probably more time than you wanted to spend. So on this video tutorial, we're going to be talking about how to increase the awesome and decrease the boring in your next Zoom meeting. Hello my friends, welcome to Word Made Digital Tutorials. I'm Joanna LaFleur, and on this tutorial we're going to be talking about top 10 tips for Zoom to make it more interesting and engaging and ultimately less exhausting and more enjoyable for the people on your team. So thank you so much to the Canadian Centre for Christian Charities for making this video possible. They are an amazing resource to you when you're trying to plan things for your finances, if you're leading an arm's length help support with human resources, maybe you want to join their group pension plan. There's all kinds of things that they have to support you as a charity. And beyond just their resources like that, they have tools, they have videos and content like I'm offering you here, but with all kinds of other topics that you might need support with, and they would love to help you. So cccc.org is the place to go. You can check it on the link in the show notes. And the membership just starts at $270, so it's really affordable, and they're an amazing way to leverage their expertise in things that you may not already have on your team. Okay, Zoom meetings. If you notice that you feel super exhausted after a string of them, there's a lot of things happening. And before we get into some tips of how to do Zoom more awesome, less boring, we want to remind you of a few of these things. First of all, it's really tiring for your brain to try and reconcile that the person that they're seeing in front of them is not actually there. Your brain is literally doing the work of trying to understand why you see this person on a screen, but they're not in front of you. It's like a cognitive dissonance for your brain. So in a normal meeting where you're having all the cues of the whole 5 senses being operated as you're connecting with the people that you're meeting with, on Zoom, you only get sight and sound. And so your brain is trying to reconcile that they're here, but not really here. And so the second piece of that is actually typically when you see people as up close as you do on Zoom, and certainly for this extended period of time, actually your brain is trying to operate its fight or flight system, because usually when people are you're seeing just the top, sort of not even the whole body or the torso of a person, just sort of their head and shoulders. Typically when someone is that close to you in real life, it's because they have a confrontation with you. There's a problem that you're trying to work out with that person. And so when you're seeing people that up close, psychologists continue to tell us that your brain is trying to know if it needs to panic, and it's actually a place where it just exhausts you. So there's lots of things that we can do, and I want to offer a few of those in this video. 10 ideas of how to make Zoom better. Number 1, be human. Be a human being on Zoom. Don't just treat it like a robot. Friendly greetings with people, having some empathy for the people on the call, recognizing that you're more than just the job you're there to do and the thing you're trying to do in terms of the meeting's agenda, but also you're real people who are gathering together. So don't forget your humanity. Don't check it at the door. Be human in your Zoom meetings. Number 2, have a leader. If you don't have a leader that's obvious when you enter a Zoom meeting, designate someone when the meeting starts to be the leader or to be the point person for the meeting. That person can help keep things on track. That person can hold things to time and the agenda. That person can redirect things if things start to go off track or we lose focus. The leader can also help people feel a bit of a sense of security and stability in a meeting that otherwise is unclear of where it's going as it meanders around. So a way to make a meeting more awesome is to actually have someone in charge of the meeting. Number 3, you want to make the meeting as short as possible. Make it as long as it needs to be to do what you need to do, but don't go on and on. Try to be succinct, try to be focused, and that's again where the leader can really help with that. You don't need a Zoom meeting that's an hour if you only really needed 15 minutes to get it done. So be thoughtful about the amount of time you're using, because it is more exhausting to meet on Zoom than it is in person. Number 4, if you have to do a longer meeting, take breaks. If you don't have breaks built in, it's okay to ask for one. People in the room might be wanting a break, but they're afraid to ask, so don't be afraid to ask for one. If you're not the leader of the meeting, it's okay to put in the chat or to message the person or just raise your hand and say, could we take a 5-minute break, to allow for stretches, to allow for a bio break, to allow for a drink of water, to allow for your brain to rest from Zoom. Take breaks in longer meetings. Tip number 5 is off hours for the start and stop time. What I mean by that is there are organizations that they have a policy with Zoom meetings that they only ever start meetings at the 10 past the hour, or alternatively, all meetings must end at the 10 to the hour. That's because you need a break in between meetings. That normal thing that would happen in meetings where you get up, you can pack your things, you walk across to your office or to the next meeting, none of that exists on Zoom. You hang up one, you start the next. But we need breaks in between, and some of those are just for really practical things or a personal phone call or something we have to do. And it's also for our brain to be at its best. So you may consider, if you have the power to do so in your organization, consider starting all your meetings at the 10 past the hour, and that allows everyone in the meeting to have a little bit of a break between meetings. Number 6, avoid 2 tiers of people in the meetings, or 2 classes of people, it can kind of feel like. What I mean by that is, if not everyone can meet in person, ideally then everyone could go on Zoom. The problem is when there's 1 or 2 people on Zoom and the rest of the people are in person, it creates like a 2-tier system where either the people on Zoom are dominating the conversation because they don't realize and they can't read sort of the dynamics of the room, or the opposite, the people on Zoom are leaning in, frustrated, they're trying to figure out what's going on, maybe they can't even hear properly, there's technical issues, but the people who are gathered around the table in person are having a hard time understanding that that's going on. So if you aren't set up for full web conferencing, which some organizations are, but most of us aren't, then consider that if there's 3 people who can meet in person and 2 of those 2 extra people who can't meet in person, they're on Zoom, maybe the best thing to do is to have all 5 of you meet on Zoom so that there's an equal playing field and everyone can participate in a meaningful way online together. Number 7, integrate things that break up the meeting in a creative way. You can have quizzes, you can have discussion in breakout rooms, maybe you want to share your screen sometimes and offer video materials, things that can break up the meeting visually, break up the meeting in terms of the part of our brain we're activating, break up the meeting in terms of the level of interaction we're having. Make sure that there's different parts of the meeting and be as creative as possible. There are tools right built into Zoom that you can use. I think quizzes or a survey feedback is one of the most fun ways you can use it. You can ask people very serious questions or just a fun one, what is the thing you want to do this weekend, or what's your favorite superhero? It doesn't really matter, whatever is appropriate for your meeting. But if you can break it up with some discussion questions, break it up with those Q&A, break it up with the breakout rooms themselves, it'll make the meeting feel less stressful for everybody involved. Number 8, it's okay in a meeting to give permission to people to turn off their cameras. Maybe you've not tried this before, but if you're in a long extended meeting, or it's a meeting that you do regularly with the same people, I encourage you to have times where you can say, everyone, if you need to turn off your camera, it's okay. Sometimes people are waiting for permission to do so, but they wouldn't do it. They would love to do it, but they won't do it unless you, the leader, have given them permission. And so sometimes is simply a thing like turning off the camera but still being engaged audibly is a huge game changer for people to be able to increase their focus and their ability to go the long haul in a meeting. So tell people sometimes, when appropriate, that it's okay for this part of the meeting or for this whole meeting that we're just going to talk without our cameras on. Number 9 on this list is to have an agenda for your meeting. You want to make your meeting more awesome and less terrible. One of the easiest ways to do that with a meeting on Zoom or a meeting in person is for people to know where they're going and to trust that you're going to get there in the end. So an agenda gives everyone clarity on what the meeting is supposed to accomplish, and then at the end you can look back and ensure you have done everything you said you would do in the meeting. Number 10, the last one is have some fun. Maybe you want to encourage everyone to bring their favorite drink with them to the meeting, or maybe you want to have everyone put on a themed background of like a green screen of their favorite place to travel if they could go anywhere, or you want to send everyone into have everyone go into outer space to celebrate, I don't know, whatever it is. You can also have theme music when people come into the room. You can have music playing to make people kind of get into a welcome, hospitable environment from the get-go, right up the top of the meeting. Whatever it is, there's tons of creative ideas. I've seen people wear costumes to Zoom meetings. I've seen people have cooking times together, ways to change it up, just to change up from the regular meeting routine. But even in your regular meetings, you can have fun, you can engage well, and it doesn't have to always be boring. Remember all these 10 tips, and I think the next meeting that you run is going to be more awesome and less boring. So thank you so much for checking out WordMade Digital Tutorials. A huge shout out to the Canadian Centre for Christian Charities for making these videos possible. Go to cccc.org to check out what they have to offer. And there's all kinds of links in the show notes or wordmadedigital.com. You can check out more tutorials and more resources. See you in the next tutorial.